I enjoy 6 days of Christmas with my family and then come back to work. Get back, so the hospital's already closed and everyone has gone home. We all have a key, so I swing by because I miss my cat. I'm greeted by a cat. His urine-soaked blankets, old, desiccated pieces of smeared on the wall, and a very who smells like pee of filth. As far as I could tell, and Amy did were put in more food and change the litter box. I saw red. Amy was scheduled to take her in there. Was gone, and out how did those two people became the only that I thought I were all day because it was the only. My blood is still boiling thinking about my precious boy who I had to bathe the night before. The sight of Amy makes that primal part of my brain reserved for beating the stuffing out of things start to burn, and she makes my muscles tense. Now, some important backstory here is that Amy is kind of terrible at her job. We were kind of friends because she was the only person who treated me decently when I first started. Whenever I found something that she messed up, I would silently complain to myself, but I'd fix it. She did stuff that deserved a write-up on a regular basis. I never said anything about Amy's screw-ups because Lisa was already aware of them, so I figured, not my business. I decided against violence, and I figured that I'd let my manager handle it. At first, I just told my manager about the condition of my cat and I kept the rest to myself. He agreed that it was unacceptable and said that he'd talk to her. She denied everything and said that she'd change my cat's bedding every night and that he just didn't pee inside the litter box. Basically, Amy lied to my manager's face without batting an eye, saying that I lied to my manager. I gave Amy the chance to own up to it because that would have been punishment enough. My manager told me what Amy said, and her blatant BS poked the dragon that was already awake and pissed. I told my manager that Amy is effing lying. I work in the kennel too, so I know when she's lying. Plus, I know my cat's bathroom habits. My manager believes me, and I not so subtly point out that if Amy's been pulling this on employees' pets, then what has she been doing to actual customers' pets? My manager thought that was a good point, and he asked me to keep an eye out for mistakes and let him know what I find. The next day, I was working the kennel without Amy, and I began to document every single thing that she did incorrectly. Remember how I said that she was terrible at her job? Well, she left me a treasure trove of garbage to dig up. To name just a few, every single animal's cage was filthy, as in multiple days of filth. 2 dogs had their medication switched for the whole week, and there were copious amounts of dog feces left in the yard. That's a big no-no because it spreads parasites and diseases. And on top of all that, not even her documentation and charges were entered correctly. It was a train wreck that took me the whole morning to get back to habitable condition. There was enough material here to get her fired, even if she had been perfect before, but she had already been disciplined several times before. I gather all the evidence and bring it to my manager, who was horrified. He said that he would set up a meeting with me, Amy, and Lisa to discuss everything. He encouraged me to hold my temper and call them out on their BS at the meeting. Until then, I hadn't even considered that Lisa was also complicit in this story, but I immediately realized that I had 2 enemies here. Lisa wasn't as horrible at his job as Amy was. Lisa was old as hell and in a demanding physical labor position. I figured that what Lisa had coming would be enough, so I could aim everything that I had at Amy. What's the human equivalent of shooting fish in a barrel? Because this girl had already dug up so much of a hole that it was incredible she wasn't fired already. She wasn't doing a job, and it turns out that she was stealing clients from the clinic by offering to pet sit for cheaper instead of offering boarding. This was explicitly against our contract and was completely fireable. Amy had also been leaving her shifts 30 minutes early, and I knew all of this. The day of the meeting rolls around, and Amy and Lisa were blissfully unaware when the manager called them, and the manager begins to explain what it is about. My manager was a freaking boss because we had prearranged to give Amy one more chance to own up to my face before I dug up all of her dirt. My manager asked me if I wanted to do it, and I told him that I had a lot of dirt. Let's let Amy dig a deeper hole first so I can use alt. Amy denied it, of course, and swore up and down that she had taken care of my poor cat properly. I graciously gave her the benefit of the doubt, saying, okay, I believe you did clean like you say. But then, how did you miss these dried up pieces of cat feces? She said my cat must have been dehydrated. I say, oh, well, you documented in your files that he'd been drinking well all week. Why would he be dehydrated? She says that it must have been from the last day. Amy just wouldn't admit it, so I give my manager the look and he tells her, okay, so you took care of the cat, but what about all this? Then my manager pulled out the stack of evidence that I'd collected. Amy's face went white. Lisa had been silent up to this point, but she started trying to apologize on Amy's behalf, saying that it was a busy week and sometimes things slip through the cracks. I called them out on their BS, saying that I had been able to handle that many animals on my own and to a higher degree of cleanliness than the two of them could together, so this was not a valid excuse. I went over every single sin that Amy and Lisa had committed over the past 3 days, individually and in depth, with discussion about each one before moving on. As we worked through the stack, my manager wrote up Amy for every single offense that warranted it. By the end of the stack, Amy had 6 write-ups, and 3 is enough to get you fired. Amy was sobbing, saying that she couldn't afford her kids' daycare if she didn't have that job. My manager very pointedly told her that he had never seen someone with such terrible job performance in 30 years. And if she were really worried about her kids, then she would have done her job better. Lisa was written up and she was removed from her lead position, and Amy was given the opportunity to quit before she was fired. The end. Ha, no it isn't. This is r/pro revenge, not r/the girl got fired. Oh no, there's so much more. Remember how Amy had been stealing clients from the clinic? She had built up quite a large client base, and she told me some weeks before that she was about to quit her job in pet sit full time because she hated her job so much. Plus, when she returned the key after quitting, she made sure I knew that all of her crying was fake, and that she had been planning to put in her 2 weeks notice anyways. At the clinic, we still saw all those clients that Amy had posted, and plenty of them asked what happened to Amy. My manager told everyone that we should just tell them the truth. Over the next few months, we saw so many customer faces twist into expressions of disgust, contempt, betrayal, and worry when we told them why Amy was no longer working there and we should consider letting her watch their pets. We told this to literally dozens of people. Anyone who's tried to pet sit for a living before knows how hard it is to build a client base. Amy had a decent client base, which we absolutely destroyed. After a while, she texted me saying that I was a piece of garbage who was destroying her and her kid's life, and she couldn't afford daycare anymore. She went from 2 or 3 pet sitting gigs a week, about $300 a week, to maybe 1 a month. I told her to go F herself and I blocked her number, and I haven't heard from her since. Do not with my cat. What's so ironic about this story is that this woman would take in someone else's animal and then give that animal substandard care. Meanwhile, she would give her own child to someone else to care for, and presumably, she would expect that person to give her kid excellent care. So not only was she terrible at her job, not only was she an animal abuser, but on top of all that, she was also a complete hypocrite. I don't blame you in the slightest, OP. If someone did that to my dog, I would be on the warpath. That was r/pro revenge, and if you like this content, check out my Patreon where I publish extra episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day. Welcome to r/best of Redditor updates, where we have one of the weirdest stories I've ever read. Our next Reddit post comes from r/am I the bad guy? Am I the bad guy for predetermining my baby's gender?
Okay, to start off, I'm 27 and my husband is 28. We've been married for 4 years. His parents and I have never had any problems, but we've never quite meshed or seen eye to eye. We've always gotten along and been civil. Recently, we've been talking a lot about our future family. My husband will be the last of his siblings to have kids. All of his siblings have at least one kid. It's been a running joke in the family that if our firstborn happens to be a girl, she won't be accepted because everyone else has a boy for a firstborn. That joke has me, but I've laughed it off as I don't want to start anything, and maybe I'm just being sensitive. Fast forward to a few months ago when we started trying. It took about 3 months for me to get pregnant. Infertility runs in my family, and my husband and I agreed on a big family, so I've been worried about starting a family so late in the game. When I did get pregnant, we were overjoyed. We had all the typical couple conversations that came from having a baby. The excitement, names, nursery themes, gender predictions, etc. He talked about wanting a son first so that he could be the big strong leader for all of his younger siblings and carry on the family name. This is a very big deal to him, instilled by his parents. I expressed my desire to have a little girl that I could dress up and match with. It became this playful banter between us. He'd refer to the baby as son, and I'd call the baby daughter. About a week before our gender scan, I searched up all the old wives' tales and made us a chart that we could fill out together to see who would hypothetically win our little bet. It included the Rang test, Chinese horoscope, heartbeat, cravings, etc. The result ended up being about 50-50 in the end, which made us even more excited to find out for certain at our scan. The following week, we went to our appointment and discovered that our baby was a girl. We were extremely excited. My husband was disappointed to lose, but he told me that he was overjoyed to be raising a daughter by my side. That night, we called our families to share the news. After calling his family, his mother asked to speak to him privately. I went to bed alone as their conversation carried on for well over an hour. The following morning, I woke up alone. There was a note on my husband's nightstand explaining by the house to pick up his belongings later in the evening. I immediately tried to call him, only to realize he had blocked my number. I then tried his mom. His mother picked up on the first ring. Before I had a chance to get a word in, she started chewing me out, calling me a manipulative B word. I asked her what I did,